The Engine of Division: How Humanity Learned to Take Sides and Forgot How to Stand Together by Jaron Bragg. Book summary. Humanity was never destroyed by its monsters. It was distracted by its mirrors. The Engine of Division exposes how every rivalry, from politics to pop culture, is part of a larger design that feeds on human emotion. Through decades of conditioning, competition has replaced connection, and outrage has become the new oxygen of modern society. Jaron Bragg breaks down the hidden machinery behind our world's chaos, how governments perform conflict, corporations monetize loyalty, and algorithms train us to argue instead of think. From schoolyard rankings to celebrity immunity, every system runs on the same code: ego, profit, and distraction. But this isn't a book about despair, it's a manual for evolution. The Engine of Division closes with a blueprint for humanity's next phase: rebuilding trust, reprogramming empathy, and living by the you over myself principle, a moral code that puts compassion back at the center of civilization. Chapter 1: The Root of Us versus Them Narrative Intro, video ready. A kindergarten teacher pins gold stars to a chart. One child beams, another frowns. The class claps for the best listener. In that moment, the room learns its first lesson in hierarchy: not math, not reading, competition. The ego stands up before the child even knows its name. Educational section. From our first classroom, society quietly teaches a survival code. Self-worth equals comparison. Grades, trophies, and social approval form the scaffolding of identity. The developing brain learns that attention follows distinction, being better than someone else. Psychologists call this ego differentiation. It's healthy when it builds self-awareness, toxic when it becomes the lens for every interaction. Children who are praised for outperforming others internalize that success is not creation, but domination. The system then reinforces itself through: 1. Educational ranking. Letter grades, honor rolls, and test scores organize children by value. 2. Athletic hierarchy. Physical ability becomes public theater for worthiness. 3. Social selection. Popularity as the unspoken scoreboard of adolescence. Each layer trains the same reflex: to win is to exist. By adulthood, this reflex becomes invisible culture. Corporations rename the star chart performance review. Nations rename it patriotism. The brain's dopamine circuit rewards victory because the ego reads it as safety. Yet that same circuit dulls empathy. When we compete for belonging, another's success feels like a threat to our own. This is why rivalry survives even in abundance. Humanity could share progress, but the ego would lose its measuring stick. Competition becomes identity. Identity becomes defense, and defense needs an opponent. Reflection line. The first gold star we earned wasn't just a reward, it was a seed. And from that seed grew every flag, every brand, every rivalry that followed. Chapter 2: Addiction to Opposition Theme: Why Conflict Feels Good and Peace Feels Empty. In a school hallway, two kids argue over who's the better athlete. A crowd forms. Laughter, phones, shouts. No punches, just pride, yet the air thickens like smoke. Later that night, both boys scroll through comments. You cooked him. Bro got destroyed. Dopamine hits harder than guilt. They both fall asleep, not wiser, just rewarded. Educational section. Conflict is not only tolerated in modern life, it's stimulated. The brain's reward system releases dopamine when we win, argue, or prove a point. That same chemical that rewards survival now rewards superiority. Neuroscientists call this the opponent process cycle. 1. Tension or threat appears, adrenaline spikes. 2. You defend your view, dopamine floods. 3. Relief follows, craving returns. Social media perfected this loop. Each argument, debate, or rivalry becomes a microdose of emotional stimulation. Peace, by comparison, feels flat, like silence after fireworks. Children raised on competition enter adulthood addicted to friction. They seek identity through opposition. Political alignment becomes personality. Online debates replace dialogue. Validation arrives only when someone else is wrong. The ego learns that the fastest route to feeling alive is resistance. This is why people defend even false beliefs, because surrender feels like death to the self-image. In relationships, teams, religions, and nations, this pattern repeats. We chase the chemical high of "I'm right" instead of the calm truth of "we're connected." Outrage becomes the universal drug, cheap, endless, and socially approved. Reflection line. Humanity doesn't crave conflict because it's evil. It craves conflict because it forgot how to feel alive without it. Chapter 3: The illusion of winning theme. How the ego confuses victory with value. The whistle blows. A high school basketball player sinks the final shot. His teammates lift him up. The crowd chants his name. Later that night, alone in his room, the same player scrolls through highlights of the opposing team's heartbreak. He smiles, then feels nothing. The applause faded, but the need didn't. Tomorrow he'll chase it again. Educational section. Humans rarely chase achievement for its own sake. They chase the feeling that follows. Validation. From early schooling through adult careers, we're taught that worth equals performance. The scoreboard becomes the mirror where the ego checks its reflection. This is known in behavioral science as extrinsic motivation, acting for external rewards or recognition. Intrinsic motivation, acting for growth or meaning, withers when every system measures best. The more we win, the more fragile we become because identity rests on comparison, not purpose. The social mirror. Modern culture amplifies this illusion through metrics. Grades, followers, profits, likes. Each number promises proof of existence. When numbers fall, self-worth falls with them. The corporate arena workplaces mirror playgrounds. Annual top performer lists, bonus brackets, and sales leaderboards all reinforce the idea that only a few deserve admiration. Instead of teamwork, quiet rivalry blooms, employees guarded, creativity dulled, collaboration feigned. The emotional cost victory gives the ego a sugar high, but satisfaction fades fast because it's built on scarcity. Someone else must lose. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill, the endless run for the next win just to feel baseline happiness. The illusion is powerful because it works short term. The body floods with dopamine and pride, society cheers. But like any drug, dependence grows. You win not to progress, but to avoid the emptiness of not winning. Reflection line. The crowd never really wanted you to win. It just wanted a story. The question is, when the cheering stops, who are you without the scoreboard? Chapter 4, Entertainment as Emotional Training Theme. How media, gaming, and tech rivalry became our generation's new religion of competition. 2009. A group of teenagers crowd around a lunch table. One shouts, "PlayStation is better." Another fires back, "Xbox runs real games." A third smirks from the end, "PC master race." None of them own the companies they're defending. None of them are paid to fight. But for a moment, it feels like battle, and belonging tastes like victory. Educational section. Every generation inherits a different arena. Where the 20th century bonded and divided through sports, the digital generation learned rivalry through screens. From stadium to screen, video games introduced competition without danger, a perfect training ground for ego. But soon the rivalry left the console. PlayStation versus Xbox versus PC wasn't about gameplay, it was about identity performance. Owning a system became a badge of intelligence, taste, and tribe. Neuroscience shows that the same reward circuits activated by real sports victories light up during digital competition. Online leaderboards, achievements, and trophies mimic the old gold star. The difference? There's no off-season. The algorithm learns our instincts. Platforms notice that rivalry equals engagement. Console wars became content wars. Apple versus Android, TikTok versus YouTube, Reddit versus Discord. Every like, comment, or repost became a micro-vote for one side. Behind the scenes, data models turn those arguments into metrics, metrics into profit. What feels like free expression is often emotional rehearsal. We practice defending brands the way earlier generations defended nations. Each generation's arena shifts, but the training goal remains: teach the ego to need an opponent. The psychological cost. When identity fuses with preference, disagreement feels like insult. A critique of your console or phone becomes a critique of you. This is the root of brand tribalism, and it spreads far beyond technology, into politics, music scenes, even dating apps. The dopamine loop completes itself. 1. Claim allegiance. 2. Defend it. 3. Receive validation. 4. Repeat. The mind learns to equate argument with existence. Reflection line. We didn't grow up fighting for territory or survival. We grew up fighting for pixels, proof that we still mattered in a world that stopped teaching peace. Chapter 5. The Marketing Gospel. How Brands Preach Rivalry. Theme. When corporations learn that division sells better than unity. A man in a Ford pickup slows beside a Chevy driver at the gas station. The look isn't friendly. A sticker on one truck says, "Friends don't let friends drive Chevys." Another reads, built Chevy tough, not found on road dead. They laugh, but only halfway. Strangers bonded by engines, divided by emblems. Educational section. The birth of brand tribalism, Ford versus Chevy, Coke versus Pepsi, McDonald's versus Wendy's. Every major rivalry began with the same revelation. Conflict moves products. Advertising discovered that humans buy belonging as much as function. By creating two sides, a company manufactures a conversation that never ends. In marketing psychology, this is called differentiation by opposition, a strategy that defines identity not by what a product is, but by what it isn't. We're not them. Real drivers choose us. Taste the difference. Once people internalize that slogan, it fuses with self-image. Mocking a rival brand becomes defending oneself. The ego economy. Every rivalry sells more than cars or burgers. It sells validation. When one side wins a taste test or a NASCAR championship, fans feel a microdose of triumph. The companies reap profit from predictable emotional cycles: pride, competition, purchase, repeat. The same formula scales into technology: iPhone versus Android, design versus freedom, PlayStation versus Xbox versus PC, loyalty turned lifestyle, TikTok versus YouTube versus Discord, Reddit, creators conscripted as unpaid evangelists. The logic never changes. Each generation receives a new holy war packaged as choice. Fast food, fast faith, McDonald's, and Wendy's perfected rivalry theater. Twitter feuds, roast battles, and commercials mocking each other created entertainment disguised as marketing. Consumers became participants in a corporate sport, trading insults for corporations that share suppliers and investors. Behind the curtain, profits from both sides often flow to the same conglomerates. Why it works. The human brain encodes identity through contrast. Marketers simply industrialized it. The result is a society fluent in sarcasm but illiterate in empathy. People defend brands with more passion than principles because those logos fill the void of community once occupied by shared purpose. Reflection line. Rivalry keeps the register ringing. Every argument at the gas pump, every meme in a comment thread is just free advertising for someone who already won, because they sold you the fight. Chapter 6, Politics and the Performance of Division. Theme, How Governments Turned Conflict into Continuity. A man drives across a state line. The sky doesn't change, the flag doesn't change, but in one state, what's in his pocket makes him a citizen. In the next, it makes him a criminal. The border isn't a fence, it's a rule book written for profit, not people. Educational section, The Great Alternation. Modern politics operates on cycles, not solutions. Every party needs its villain, every administration needs a cleanup act. The result is a system that solves just enough to stay relevant, never enough to become obsolete. Laws are crafted not as cures, but as time bombs, written to unravel under future conditions, ensuring the next government has something to fix. The loop continues. 1. One side passes reform. 2. The next inherits the backlash. 3. Each claims the other caused it. 4. Voters stay hooked on outrage, convinced salvation is one election away. This ensures governance remains a subscription service to chaos. Fragmented law, fragmented nation. Nowhere is this clearer than in America's patchwork legality. Cannabis, legal in one state, felony in another. Firearms, open carry here, life sentence there. Abortion, gambling, healthcare access, all depend on which side of an invisible line you stand on. A single nation claims one justice under God, yet the same act can be both constitutional and criminal depending on a highway exit. This inconsistency isn't oversight, it's design. It allows politicians to campaign endlessly on issues that can never be resolved nationally. Each state becomes a laboratory for division, breeding headlines instead of harmony. The illusion of freedom masks a strategy of containment. Let citizens fight over the patchwork so they never notice who's sewing the seams. The theater of opposition, news networks amplify this tension into spectacle. Each policy failure is a new episode, each protest a season finale. Red states and blue states become characters in a reality show written by lobbyists and funded by outrage clicks. Meanwhile, the audience, voters, mistake participation for power. They cheer, boo, argue online, and keep the lights on for the performance. Why it works? Because it feels fair. People equate variation with democracy, not realizing that the inconsistency is the very mechanism of control. If the nation agreed on everything, politics would lose its theater. Division isn't a side effect, it's the business model. Reflection line. Borders aren't just drawn on maps, they're drawn in laws, thin lines that tell us we're free while quietly keeping us divided. Chapter 7, The Algorithm of Outrage, theme, How Attention Became the New Currency and Why Injustice Makes the Best Content. A headline flashes, Rapper Pardoned by President. One side cheers, finally someone understands the culture. The other rages, Proof the system is corrupt. The story trends for 3 days. Nobody asks what law changed, what root problem got solved. The outrage alone was worth more than the truth. Educational section. The economy of emotion. Social platforms discovered what politics and marketing already knew. Anger sells faster than logic. Algorithms reward engagement, not understanding. So the more divisive the post, the higher it climbs. Media companies now operate like casinos for emotion. Every headline a lever that pays out in dopamine. Outrage is profitable because it's infinite. There will always be a new villain, a new exemption, a new "you won't believe this." Status as spectacle. Celebrity pardons, viral crimes, and scandal absolutions function as rituals of inequality. When figures like Youngboy Never Broke Again or Kodak Black walk free through political connections, the system broadcasts two simultaneous messages. One, to the powerful, the game still works. Two, to the powerless, the rules were never real. Outrage becomes content, and content becomes currency. Each share, comment, and rant feeds the platforms that engineered the feeling in the first place. Instead of reform, we get replays. How the loop works. 1. Trigger an injustice or scandal surfaces. 2. Amplify. Platforms detect rising emotion and push it. 3. Polarize. Users split into sides, reinforcing identity through anger. 4. Forget. The story fades until the next one restarts the cycle. Sociologists call this the outrage feedback loop. It converts moral energy into market data. Justice isn't the goal. Engagement is. The generational trap. Younger audiences raised on trending emotion inherit confusion. Crime and consequence look optional. Morality looks negotiable. They watch elites skate past punishment while ordinary people get lifetime records for less. The lesson isn't justice, it's influence equals immunity. Platforms quietly reinforce that lesson by boosting the most extreme reactions, teaching users that passion is value and calm is invisibility. Reflection line outrage feels like power because it's loud, but real power is quiet. It changes systems instead of feeding. Chapter 8, The Machine That Feeds on Friction. A protest breaks out downtown. Cameras swarm. Live streams start. Within hours, the same clip plays beside 3 headlines, each with a different villain. Viewers argue in the comments, advertisers buy new slots, politicians quote the footage. No one asks who owns the network. Educational section. The hidden business model division isn't chaos, it's infrastructure. Each layer of society, government, media, tech, and finance, earns revenue or power from the same cycle. 1. Conflict creates attention. 2. Attention creates data. 3. Data creates profit and control. It's the quiet alliance between outrage and economy. News outlets sell advertising based on emotional volatility. Politicians fundraise by polarizing. Social networks mine engagement. Corporations align with values only when it expands their market share. When people calm down, revenue drops, so the system keeps everyone shaking. Money as the master algorithm. Follow any argument far enough and you'll find a transaction. From celebrity pardons to campaign donations, from justice delays to viral scandals, cash connects every contradiction. The wealthy purchase insulation from consequence. The rest purchase distraction from inequality. It's not conspiracy, it's incentive. Economists call it asymmetric accountability. The more value you generate for the system, the fewer rules apply to you. That's why status immunity persists. Each scandal pays dividends in attention, which feeds the same networks that condemn it. Controlled chaos regulation is written to look like control but function like containment. Tax codes, privacy laws, and even free speech. Platforms are designed to keep outrage inside monetizable lanes. The illusion of freedom is the safety valve that prevents unity. The generational cost. Every scroll, every repost, every "can you believe this" becomes labor. Citizens work for free as content distributors, emotional producers, and unpaid marketers of division. The machine doesn't care what side you're on, only that you stay online. Reflection line. The system doesn't hide the truth. It buries it under everything you'd rather argue about. Chapter 9, Justice for Sale. Theme. How freedom became a subscription service. Two men commit the same crime. One posts bail before sunset, the other waits 3 months for a court date. One's lawyer quotes precedent, the other's public defender glances at the clock. Same law, different price tag. Educational section. The hierarchy of defense. Justice was built on the promise of equality, yet it functions on tiered access to knowledge. One, public defender, overworked, underpaid, balancing dozens of cases a week. Their goal, close files, not build strategies. Two, private attorney, middle class, paid hourly, selective about clients, incentivized to prolong litigation. Their goal, sustain income, not necessarily deliver truth. Three, elite counsel, corporate firms, armies of specialists fluent in every loophole, clause, and procedural delay. Their goal, control outcomes. The difference isn't morality, it's information density. Who can afford the hours to read, interpret, and manipulate the code? The same statutes become weapons or shields depending on the wallet behind them. Knowledge for sale. Legal systems reward complexity because complexity creates dependence. Every new clause, amendment, and subsection generates billable expertise. In practice, wealthy clients buy interpretation. The poor receive instruction. Public defenders plead, middle-class lawyers negotiate, elites rewrite the narrative itself. Law isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed to convert justice into revenue. The paywall of freedom. Consider the simple act of bail. A citizen is presumed innocent, yet freedom costs thousands before trial. Those who can't pay lose jobs, homes, and custody long before conviction. Those who can pay continue life as normal, their punishment replaced by inconvenience. This is the monetary distortion at the core of Western justice. Liberty is collateral. The legal loop and lobby cycle. Elite law firms don't just defend clients, they write the laws that will later defend their clients again. Former prosecutors become defense lawyers for corporations they once sued. Lobbyists draft regulations with loopholes tailored to their benefactors. The system functions like a self-cleaning oven. Every scandal burns away only the expendable. Cultural consequences. When communities watch celebrities or politicians escape punishment while local kids serve years for lesser crimes, cynicism becomes culture. Faith in fairness dies, replaced by transactional morality, the belief that justice is simply a matter of leverage. From there, division deepens. The poor distrust the law, the rich distrust the public, and both distrust each other more than the system that exploits them. Reflection line. The law may call everyone equal, but it doesn't charge the same admission fee. Chapter 10. The Manufacture of Consent. Theme. How people are taught to accept inequality as normal. The bell rings. A civics teacher points to the flag. This is the land of opportunity, she says. A kid in the back raises his hand. Then why do rich people never go to jail? The teacher hesitates, smiles, and replies, that's complicated. The bell rings again. Lesson over. Educational section. The invisible curriculum. From classrooms to cable news, society trains obedience through repetition. Rules look moral, systems look inevitable, and questioning either looks ungrateful. The result is consent manufacturing, a phrase coined by Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman to describe how media and education shape public agreement without direct force. Schools teach participation, not power. Memorize civics, don't analyze structures. News teaches reaction, not reflection. Who's right today, not why the game never ends. Entertainment teaches aspiration without context. Glorify success, ignore systemic cost. Every institution repeats the same moral. The system works, you just need to work harder. Classroom conditioning education mirrors the corporate ladder it feeds. Grades mimic paychecks. Standardized tests train compliance to procedure over creativity. Discipline policies reward silence over curiosity. Students learn that following the rules, even unfair ones, earns stability. Critical thought, the skill that threatens inequality, is minimized to preserve order. Children graduate fluent in competition but illiterate in collective power. Media as ministry. Corporate media completes the lesson. 5 conglomerates own the majority of global news, and everyone depends on advertising revenue. That revenue demands stability of the consumer base, not disruption of the power base. Therefore, scandals are isolated to individuals, bad apples, never to systems, rotten orchards. The audience feels informed but remains obedient, angry enough to debate, calm enough to comply. Algorithmic consent. In the digital age, consent no longer requires persuasion, it requires distraction. While the wealthy hire lawyers to bend laws, the average citizen scrolls through manufactured controversy. Algorithms feed outrage while filtering out context, shaping what people believe is important. The more polarized the feed, the easier it is to guide behavior without command. The moral illusion society rewards compliance with comfort. A paycheck, a phone upgrade, a steady stream of entertainment. Resistance feels inconvenient. Convenience feels patriotic. Citizens mistake safety for freedom. By the time they realize they've agreed to the terms of their own exploitation, it's already a subscription they auto-renewed. Reflection line, true control doesn't silence you. It convinces you there's nothing worth saying. Chapter 11, The Spiritual Contradiction Theme, How Belief Became Another Battlefield. Intro page. Every age builds its idols. Some call them gods, some call them teams, some call them brands. All are made of the same material, faith and fear. Part 3 exposes how the oldest force meant to unite us, spirituality, was slowly rewritten into another engine of separation. It isn't about religion versus atheism, it's about ego versus empathy. When humanity tried to explain the unexplainable, we created faith. When ego tried to own it, we created factions. Over time, love became a rulebook, worship became a scoreboard, and salvation became a sales pitch. But buried under all the noise, the same truth still hums through every scripture, chant, and prayer: you are not separate. This section journeys through that contradiction, how holy texts turned into weapons, how games became rituals of hate, and how victory replaced virtue. Yet it also uncovers what was never lost, the universal language of compassion, still written beneath every belief system. Read these chapters not as attacks on faith, but as X-rays of intention, showing where humanity's search for meaning was hijacked by its hunger for belonging. Chapter 12, Faith Against Itself. Theme: Religion's unintentional betrayal of unity. A family gathers for dinner in a quiet suburb. The father bows his head in prayer, thanking a higher power for blessings. His son, home from college, shifts uncomfortably, whispering later, "Dad, that's just old myths." Across town, a mosque and a church stand side by side, their leaders cordial in public. But online, their followers trade barbs. Your God is false. No, yours is the lie. The divine message of love echoes unheard, drowned by human echoes of exclusion. Educational section. Religion, at its core, was born from a universal hunger for connection, to the divine, to each other, to meaning beyond the self. Yet over centuries, institutions transformed these teachings into tools of separation. What began as paths to unity became borders of belief, where devotion to doctrine overshadows the shared human spirit. This betrayal unfolds through layers of human intervention. 1. Doctrinal exclusivity. Scriptures interpreted to claim sole truth, turning my path into the only path. Faiths like Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, which all contain verses on universal love, get weaponized to assert superiority. 2. Hierarchical structures. Clergy and leaders centralize power, creating in-groups of the faithful versus out-groups of the lost. This mirrors the ego's need for distinction, prioritizing loyalty to the institution over empathy for all. 3. Ritualized division. Holy wars, schisms, and denominations splinter communities. From the Crusades to modern sectarian violence, religion's machinery amplifies tribalism under the guise of salvation. 4. Cultural fusion. Faith blends with nationalism or ethnicity, making spiritual identity a proxy for worldly rivalries. A believer's God becomes our God, justifying exclusion of the other. Psychologically, this stems from cognitive dissonance. The ego clings to certainty in an uncertain world, using religion as a shield. Sociologically, it sustains power. Divided flocks are easier to shepherd. The irony is profound. Nearly every major faith teaches unity, e.g., the Christian love thy neighbor, Islamic ummah, Buddhist interconnectedness, yet practice often breeds the opposite. Humanity forgets that spirituality was meant to dissolve boundaries, not draw them. Reflection line. Religion didn't divide us because it failed. It divided us because we remade it in our image. Ego first, enlightenment second. Chapter 13, Sports and the Sin of Identity Violence. Theme: When fandom becomes ritualized hate. The stadium roars as the home team scores. A fan in blue leaps up, pumping his fist. Across the aisle, a man in red hurls a beer cup, screaming obscenities. Security drags him away, but the crowd cheers. not for the game, but for the fight. Later, on the train home, strangers bond over the win, ignoring the bruises left on spirits. Educational section. Sports were invented as play, harmless outlets for energy, strategy, and community. But in the modern arena, they've evolved into proxy wars where fandom substitutes for deeper belonging and rivalry excuses emotional brutality. This identity violence turns spectators into soldiers, channeling primal instincts into manufactured conflict. The mechanics of this sin reveal themselves in stages. 1. Tribal affiliation. Fans adopt teams as extensions of self, much like ancient clans. Wearing a jersey becomes a declaration of identity, triggering the brain's in-group bias. Us feels safe, them feels threatening. 2. Ritualized aggression. Chants, taunts, and trash talk ritualize hate, normalizing verbal and sometimes physical attacks. Neuroscience shows this activates the same amygdala response as real threats, flooding the body with adrenaline and cortisol. 3. Commercial amplification. Leagues and media profit from the drama, hyping rivalries like El Clasico or Super Bowl as epic battles. Billions in merchandise, tickets, and ads depend on emotional investment. Calm fans don't buy as much. 4. Generational transmission. Children learn this at games or on TV, internalizing that passion equals aggression. What starts as fun morphs into entitlement. My team's loss is an injustice, justifying online harassment or real-world riots. The spiritual cost is steep. Sports erode empathy by framing opponents as enemies, not equals. Studies in social psychology, e.g., the Robbers Cave experiment, show how arbitrary groups foster hostility, even without stakes. In a world craving connection, fandom fills the void, but at the price of unity, not turning play into a sin against the collective soul. Reflection line. The scoreboard doesn't track points. It tracks how much humanity we're willing to sacrifice for the thrill of feeling superior. Chapter 14, The Idol of Victory Theme, The Worship of Success Over Spirit. A tech CEO stands on stage unveiling the next big gadget. The audience erupts in applause, stocks surge overnight. Backstage, he pops another pill to quiet the anxiety. His empire grows, but his nights are empty. Friends replaced by followers, purpose by profit margins. The idol demands more sacrifices, and he kneels again. Educational section. Victory, once a milestone of effort, has become a deity in modern culture, an idol demanding constant tribute at the altar of ambition. This worship prioritizes external success over internal spirit, distorting human potential into a race where the finish line keeps moving. The structure of this idolatry builds on false foundations. 1. Cultural deification. Society elevates winners as models of virtue, from Olympic athletes to billionaire entrepreneurs. Media narratives frame success as moral superiority, ignoring luck, privilege, or ethical compromises. 2. Ego reinforcement. The pursuit of victory feeds the self-image, releasing endorphins that mimic spiritual fulfillment. But as psychologists note, this extrinsic validation creates addiction. One win demands another to stave off inadequacy. 3. Systemic incentives. Capitalism and education systems idolize outcomes over process. Promotions, awards, and viral fame reward visible triumphs, often at the expense of collaboration or integrity. The spirit, creativity, compassion, growth gets sidelined as soft skills. 4. Spiritual erosion. Ancient wisdom traditions, e.g., Taoism's balance, Christianity's humility, warn against idolizing worldly gains, yet modern life inverts this. Victory becomes a false god, promising transcendence but delivering isolation. The consequence is a hollowed-out soul. People achieve peaks only to find emptiness, as success severed from spirit breeds burnout, envy, and disconnection. True spirit thrives in shared journeys, not solitary conquests, yet the idol convinces us otherwise, perpetuating a cycle of unfulfilled worship. Reflection line. We built altars to victory, thinking it would make us gods. Instead, it made us slaves, chained to a throne that's always just out of reach. Chapter 15, The Universal Teachings They Forgot. Theme, comparing how every faith once spoke the same truth. An old library, dust motes dancing in the light. A scholar pores over ancient texts, the Bible, Quran, Vedas, Tao Te Ching. Page after page, the words align. Love, unity, compassion. Outside, the world wars over differences. He closes the books, wondering, when did we stop reading the same story? Educational section. Beneath the rituals and dogmas, the world's major faiths share a core blueprint, a universal truth of interconnectedness and empathy that humanity has selectively forgotten. This amnesia allows division to flourish, as institutions emphasize differences over the shared wisdom that could unite us. Key comparisons reveal the forgotten harmony. 1. Unity of being. Christianity's God is love. 1 John 4, verse 8 echoes Islam's Tawheed, oneness of God and creation. Hinduism's Brahman, ultimate reality connecting all, and Buddhism's interdependence. All teach that separation is illusion, harm to another is harm to self. 2. Compassion as command. The golden rule appears universally. Christianity's do unto others, Matthew 7:12, Islam's hadith on mercy, Confucianism's reciprocity, Judaism's tikkun olam, repair the world. Yet practice often limits this to one's own kind, forgetting the boundaryless intent. 3. Ego transcendence. Taoism's Wu Wei, effortless action, aligns with Sufi Islam's fana, annihilation of self, Zen's no mind, and Christian kenosis, self-emptying. Each urges surrender of ego for higher unity, but modern interpretations twist this into hierarchical control. 4. Peace over power. Indigenous spiritualities, Sikhism's equality, and Baha'i unity all prioritize harmony. Wars and schisms arise not from the teachings, but from human additions, power structures that commodify faith. Religious studies scholars like Karen Armstrong argue this convergence points to a perennial philosophy, a timeless truth rediscovered across cultures. Forgetting it serves division, as fragmented faiths become tools for control rather than bridges for connection. Reclaiming these universals could dissolve rivalries, reminding us that every prophet spoke the same language of the soul. Reflection line. The gods didn't disagree. We did, translating their whispers into shouts that drowned out the truth they all shared. Chapter 16, The Hypocrisy Loop. Theme, moral performance as entertainment. An influencer posts a tearful video. We must do better for the planet. Views skyrocket. Sponsors line up. The next day, she jets to a luxury resort. Carbon footprint forgotten. Her followers rage in the comments, then scroll to the next virtue signal. The show goes on. Hypocrisy, the unspoken script. Educational section. Morality, once a private compass, has become public theater, a loop where performance replaces practice, and virtue is measured by visibility rather than integrity. This hypocrisy entertains and divides, turning ethical living into a spectacle that distracts from real change. The loop operates through predictable stages. 1. Signal and spectacle. Social media rewards performative ethics. Hashtags, viral challenges, and celebrity endorsements create the illusion of action. Psychology's moral licensing explains how one good post excuses subsequent lapses. 2. Selective outrage. Hypocrisy thrives on inconsistency, condemning others' flaws while ignoring one's own. This in-group favoritism, e.g., politicians preaching family values amid scandals, entertains audiences who enjoy the drama without self-reflection. 3. Commercial co-opting. Brands and influencers monetize morals, turning causes into content. Woke capitalism sells products wrapped in ethics, but the loop closes when profits trump principles, entertainment value over substantive reform. The 4. Cultural reinforcement. Entertainment media amplifies this. Reality TV, talk shows, and memes reward hypocritical takedowns. Viewers feel superior without changing, perpetuating a cycle where morality is consumed, not lived. Sociologists term this performative hypocrisy, a byproduct of the attention economy. It erodes trust as genuine advocates get lost in the noise and divides society into cynics and posers. Breaking the loop requires quiet consistency. Morals as habit, not highlight reel. Reflection line. Hypocrisy isn't a flaw in the system. It's the feature that keeps the audience tuned in, applauding the act instead of demanding the truth. Chapter 17, The Human Reset Theme, How Awareness Can Break the Machine. A factory hums all night. Inside, hundreds of people press the same button again and again, never seeing what the machine builds. One worker finally steps back, unplugs her headset, and listens. The silence is terrifying, then peaceful. For the first time, she realizes the machine only runs because she does. Educational section. Awakening. Every system that profits from division depends on one ingredient: unconscious participation. When individuals become conscious of the loops of outrage, rivalry, hierarchy, the gears slip. History shows that awareness, not revolution, starts real change. It begins when people refuse to play the emotional roles written for them. Awareness isn't rebellion, it's reclamation. You reclaim the ability to choose which energies you feed: fear or empathy, noise or understanding. Decoding the triggers. The reset starts with noticing patterns. 1. Who benefits from my anger? 2. Who profits from my distraction? 3. Who gains when I stop trusting my neighbor? Once those answers are clear, outrage loses its audience. Algorithms can't monetize neutrality. They starve on calm attention. Relearning connection, empathy, is the original human technology. Before money, before media, cooperation was the survival code. Modern life replaced that with metrics, followers, profit margins, party lines, but the blueprint remains in our wiring. Psychologists call it social resonance, the ability to feel another person's reality as your own. It's the antidote to division, and it costs nothing. Reconnection can start small, listening without preparing a counter-argument, sharing information without ridicule, valuing curiosity over certainty. Each act weakens the system that feeds on polarity. Collective reset. Communities can re-engineer their own environments. Transparent economics, supporting local and cooperative models instead of monopolies. Decentralized media, podcasts, community journalism, peer-to-peer channels. Participatory politics, citizen assemblies, open budgets, direct feedback systems. Change stops looking impossible when it stops looking alone. The moral reboot. True morality isn't law or religion, it's alignment. When intention and action match empathy, external control loses leverage. People who treat others as extensions of themselves cannot be divided by branding or belief. The you over myself principle you founded is the code rewrite. Place humanity before ego, connection before currency, compassion before compliance. Reflection line. The system isn't a monster to destroy, it's a mirror to outgrow. Chapter 18, Reclaiming the Self. The noise never stops anymore. Notifications, headlines, opinions, every second another tug at the mind. One morning, a man leaves his phone on the dresser and walks outside. The silence feels violent at first. Then he hears birds, wind, his own breath. The world didn't shrink, his awareness did, and now it's expanding again. Educational core division begins in distraction. To reset society, individuals must first reclaim inner sovereignty, the ability to decide what receives attention. Psychologists call this metacognition, observing thought instead of obeying it. Practices that rebuild that control, mindfulness, journaling, time in nature, aren't trends. They're acts of civil disobedience against the attention economy. The more people master their focus, the weaker manipulation becomes. Chapter 19, Rebuilding Trust. Two neighbors haven't spoken in years. Different politics, same street. A storm knocks out power. One knocks on the other's door with a flashlight. The silence between them breaks, not with debate, but survival. Educational core trust dies in abstraction. It's revived through proximity. The antidote to digital tribalism is local human contact, sharing meals, not memes, debating in person, not in comment threads, solving community problems before national ones. Sociologists call this social capital, the unseen wealth created by cooperation. Rebuilding it dismantles the illusion that we need permission to unite. Chapter 20, Economy of Empathy. A young woman starts a small cafe. No ads, no influencers, just pay what you can coffee. Her accountant warns it'll fail. A year later, it's thriving. Customers protect it like family. Educational core empathy has economic power. Co-ops, mutual aid networks, and transparent businesses prove that generosity sustains itself when trust is genuine. Each transaction becomes a statement. We can build wealth without war. The future market will belong to enterprises that treat humanity as capital, not cost. Chapter 21, The You Over Myself Code. A child watches two adults argue. When they finally stop, the child asks, who won? One answers, nobody. The other smiles, then maybe everybody. Educational core. This philosophy isn't utopian. It's practical physics of human systems. Putting you before myself reverses the entropy of division. It doesn't erase individuality, it aligns it. In business, politics, family, or art, every decision filtered through empathy multiplies stability. It's the software patch humanity forgot to install. Chapter 22, The Next Civilization, Narrative Intro. Future archaeologists uncover our data trails, billions of arguments, opinions, rivalries. Among them, one file stands out, the engine of division. They read, then write a note. They finally noticed. Educational core. The next stage of civilization isn't technological, it's emotional. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and space colonization mean nothing if consciousness stays tribal. Evolution will not favor the strongest or smartest, it will favor the most coherent. When empathy scales faster than greed, the species graduates. Final reflection: the world doesn't need another revolution, it needs a reconnection. Every time you choose understanding over ego, you become the update the system can't predict.